Marcus Chen stood in the fluorescent-lit aisle of Save Mart at 11 p.m. comparing generic mac and cheese boxes while his daughter's words echoed in his head. "It's okay, Daddy. I don't need the fancy shoes. These will last another month." She was 7 years old and already apologizing for needing things. The weight of that reality pressed harder than any spotlight ever had. Harder than the Grammy that now gathered dust in a storage unit he couldn't afford to visit. 3 years ago, Marcus had been on magazine covers, his face plastered across Times Square. His music playing in every coffee shop, every mall, every teenager's bedroom. Then came the call that changed everything. His sister's accident. Her dying wish whispered through hospital tubes. "Take care of Emma. Don't let her grow up in the system like we did." He'd walked away from a $20 million tour, from recording contracts and endorsement deals that would have set him up for life. He'd chosen a little girl who barely knew his name over everything the world said mattered. Now he restocked shelves at night and drove for a ride-share service during school hours, invisible in a way that felt both freeing and suffocating. The baseball cap pulled low wasn't a disguise anymore. It was just who he was. A tired single dad trying to make rent. "Excuse me." A voice cut through his mental arithmetic of bills and groceries. Marcus looked up into the most striking green eyes he'd ever seen, belonging to a woman in a designer coat that probably cost more than his car. She held a basket with a single bottle of wine and looked utterly lost. "Do you work here?" "I'm looking for I don't even know." "What do people eat when they're sad?" Something about her honesty made him smile. "Depends on the kind of sad. Ice cream sad, pizza sad, or burn it all down sad." She laughed and it sounded surprised, like she hadn't expected to. "Definitely somewhere between pizza and burn it all down. Aisle 7. They've got a frozen lasagna that's surprisingly not terrible. And the chocolate chip cookie dough in aisle 9. He paused. "I don't work here, by the way. Just a frequent sad shopper myself. A connoisseur of midnight misery shopping. Something like that." She studied him with an intensity that made him want to adjust his cap lower. "I'm Olivia and I just walked out of my own engagement party because I realized I was marrying someone I didn't even like very much just because it made sense on paper, Marcus. And I once walked away from a stadium tour for a 7-year-old who needed me more than the world needed another pop song. That's either the most beautiful thing I've ever heard or you're a very creative liar." Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully, and for a terrifying second, he thought she might recognize him. But recognition didn't come, just interest. Real interest in the man standing in front of her, not the persona he'd left behind. They talked until security asked them to leave because the store was closing. They talked in the parking lot until 2 a.m. sitting on the hood of his beat-up Honda while she left her Tesla idling. She told him about running her late father's tech company, about board members who saw her as a placeholder, about the loneliness of being in charge of 3,000 people's livelihoods. He told her about Emma's nightmares, about parent-teacher conferences where he was the only dad, about the way his daughter hoarded food in her backpack because her first 7 years taught her that meals weren't guaranteed. "Go out with me," Olivia said suddenly. "For a month, 4 weeks. I dare you." "That's not how dating works." "Says who? I'm tired of dinner dates where men perform for me. I want real. I'll show you my world, you show me yours. No pretending, just a month of honest, weird, messy reality." Marcus knew he should say no. His life was complicated enough. But Emma had been asking about why they never did fun things like her classmates. And something about Olivia's challenge sparked the part of him that used to say yes to impossible things. "One condition," he said, "my daughter comes first. Always no negotiation. I wouldn't respect you if she didn't." The month that followed rewrote everything. Marcus thought he knew about people who lived in penthouses. Olivia showed up to his apartment with groceries, not fancy organic stuff, but the actual brands he bought because she'd memorized what was in his cart that first night. She came to Emma's soccer games in her work clothes cheering louder than anyone. She didn't just tolerate his daughter's presence. She brought coloring books, asked about second-grade drama, braided hair with the concentration of someone tackling a merger deal. In return, Marcus showed her the city she'd lived in her whole life but never really seen. Diners where waitresses knew your name. Community centers where Emma took free art classes. The children's hospital where he volunteered. Playing guitar for kids who'd never heard his chart-topping hits and loved his music anyway because it made them smile. Why did you really walk away? Olivia asked one night, watching him tuck Emma into bed with a tenderness that made her chest ache. Because I grew up in foster care, bouncing between houses where nobody wanted me. I knew what that felt like, being the obligation, the burden. I couldn't let her live that life. Not when I could choose differently. You gave up everything. No, Marcus corrected softly. I gave up money and fame. I gained everything that actually matters. Took me a while to believe that, but it's true. Olivia kissed him then, and it tasted like tears. Hers, not his. The month was almost up when Emma got sick. Really sick. Pneumonia that landed her in the hospital with bills Marcus couldn't fathom paying. He sat beside her bed holding her small hand. Doing math that didn't work no matter how he calculated it. He'd have to sell everything. Maybe go back to music, gravel to the industry that had already forgotten him. Olivia walked in at dawn, still in yesterday's clothes. The board meeting ran late. How is she? Stable, expensive, he tried to smile. Our month's up tomorrow, by the way. Hell of a finale, huh, Marcus? She sat beside him, taking his other hand. I'm in love with you. Completely terrifyingly in love with you, and I have a proposition that's going to make you angry, but hear me out. She offered him a job, head of her company's new charitable foundation, developing arts programs for foster kids, real salary, benefits, health insurance that would cover Emma retroactively. It was everything he needed, presented exactly when he needed it most. You're right. I am angry, he said quietly. Because this feels like charity. It's not charity. It's me being selfish. Olivia's voice shook. I'm creating a job I need you to do because you're the only person who can. You understand what these kids need because you were one, and I'm offering it now because timing is never convenient and waiting for the right moment is how people lose each other. And is separate, always separate. You take the job or don't. I still want every messy, complicated, beautiful day with you. And Emma, I still want to be the person who brings the wrong homework folder and burns dinner and shows up anyway. Emma stirred, opening her eyes. Is Olivia staying? Marcus looked at the woman who dared him into the most important month of his life, who'd seen him at his most exhausted and desperate, and chose him anyway, who loved his daughter like she was her own. Yeah, sweetheart, she's staying. Olivia's dare had lasted a month, but her commitment, his heart knew, would last infinitely longer. Because sometimes walking away from fame means walking towards something better. Sometimes the greatest comeback isn't a return to the spotlight, but finding someone who sees you in the dark and decides that's exactly where they want to be. 3 years later, Marcus would release an album dedicated to foster children with all proceeds funding the foundation. Critics would call it his masterpiece, but on quiet nights tucked between Olivia and Emma on their worn couch, he knew his real masterpiece was this. A life built on showing up, on choosing love when it was inconvenient, on believing that ordinary moments with extraordinary people were the truest form of fame anyone could ask for. The world had dared him to be a star. Olivia had dared him to be himself. Turned out the second dare was the one worth taking.